This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, August the 22nd. We have approval of minutes from August 15th.
It's good.
Appeals, we have requests for waiver of the noise ordinance on December the 2nd, 8:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. in Tricentennial Park.
That's fine.
October 19th, from 9 a.m. until 10 p.m. in Mardi Gras Park. October 28th, from 12 p.m. until 7 p.m. in Mardi Gras Park. September 30th, 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. on LeSueur Road.
I'd like to modify that to midnight.
September 17th, from 12 p.m. until 5 p.m. in Medal of Honor Park.
Good, Councilman Wood.
August 26th, 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. in Langen Park. Public hearings today is the public hearing to declare the structure at 1861 LaSalle Street public nuisance in order to demolish 2510 Green Lawn Drive, 1157 Kentucky Street, 3105 Emily Drive, and 400 LaRose Drive public nuisances in order and them demolished or secured. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. James Jackson Jr. Concerns about the safety of all taxpaying citizens when dealing with Mobile Police Department would like the body cam footage released concerning the death of Jawan Dallas. Llewellyn Timms requests information regarding body cameras and city permits. Bill Williams asked for release of body cam footage concerning Jawan Dallas. Christine Dallas and Carolina Dallas, the same request.
Council, I had talked to the administration yesterday. I believe that the city attorney will be able to address these concerns with these citizens.
Ordinance is held over 64038, rezone property located on the southwest corner of Monday Street and St. Meter Street, extending to the northwest corner of Hercules Street and Monday Street from R2 to R3. Consent resolutions held over 03867, appoint members to the Mobile Historic Development Commission.
Mr. President,
Mr. Roman?
I had last week's discussion surrounding some interest from folks from District 4 that wanted to serve on this commission, and through understanding sort of their qualifications, what their history and all that is. I think when we passed this ordinance, we passed certain qualifications to go along with it for people that are willing to serve. And at this time, I don't think they're quite meeting those requirements at this point. So as much as I'd love to have some folks represent those at-large positions from outside of the existing historic districts, I don't think we've had quite enough time to get folks together and put them on the agenda. So, if y'all want to move forward with what the mayor has put forward, that's fine with me.
Mr. Carroll, did you have anything, Mr. Carroll?
I think I know everybody on the list, even some of the at-large members. And I think I want to say 90% of them have some type of historic knowledge or background within the historic communities. Even Kim Knowles, who is new to the commission, has now purchased property on Hamilton and Franklin Street and is abiding by the historic preservation laws and ordinances and will be living in a historic district after her home is completed and after the two developments are completed. Other members have been members either ARB or Historic Commission before now. I have no problem with them, and I'm hoping that you guys don't have a problem with them either. I think I've stated that before. However, I did have a problem with the union between the ARB and the MHDC. It was some thought that would be somewhat corrected. I don't know what was the outcome of that. I'd like to hear how we resolved that, or if we've resolved that, or what was the end conversation on that.
So our recommendation is to stay with the people that we nominated.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there's one individual that will serve on both, LB and the MHDC. But the feeling is that he rolls off with that ARB in a year, give us a chance to appoint somebody else. But we were looking for some continuity this first year. That's the most qualified person to bring that.
To the ARB, I think Mr. Reynolds was requesting a spot on the MHDC, right? And I understand the wealth of ability that Steve brings to the MHDC, which would be long lasting compared to the ARB. But for there to be a person from District 4 on the ARB, does that meet the guideline that we set in place in the last go round? Because I think most of the members come from the 7 historic districts. Is that not correct?
So, selecting the people that we selected, they had to pass through the filter of qualifications. The other part that they had to pass through was people that we felt like would attend meetings, because that's been one of the problems that's plagued those organizations. So we still think that the people that we have submitted are the ones that should serve, and the council has the right to vote them up or vote them down, but we do not have an alternative at this point in time to replace one of them.
Okay. Again, I'm not questioning the appointees. I hope you understand that. I was just trying to find a way to help my colleague find a position for District 4 within the MHDC. They are at-large positions that are membership positions, if they're not board positions that are also part of the nonprofit that's established there. But I mean, I don't have a problem with you trying to, and I don't think any other of our colleagues have a problem with you trying to establish a place within the MHD for District 4 for its growth in the future. So I don't know if it's going to get there today, but I don't have a problem with it. Go ahead.
Mr. President, I think it would be important to really utilize those at-large positions as at-large positions, 7 from existing historic districts and 6 at-large. I think maybe 2 of the positions of the 13 are at-large currently being filled by people outside of historic districts. And just at this point, newly establishing the MHDC and the ARB, there hasn't been quite enough time for me to attract or, go out and seek someone out for this appointment. I had some interest. That's why I raised it last week. Turns out the interest that I received, they didn't make it through the filter of qualification. So, at this point, I'm kind of left, without someone to nominate from the greater Japonica area. So, with that in mind, in the business that's before the MHDC and ARB, or MHDC, I think we just move forward with what we got for now. And then on the next go round of appointments will be 3 years? So that's where I'm at.
With the caveat that we'll make the staggering like we talked about in meetings 2 weeks ago. You and I have talked about it. It's where we stagger the appointments after the first round of changes, 1 year.
ARB or B?
ARB.
Okay,
Yeah,
ARB,
and
yes.
if once we make those changes, there'll be an opportunity there.
That's correct. I thought we were talking about anyways.
Anyone else? Ms. Lambert?
4870, 874, fix the cost of demolition of structures at 310 Hausfeld Lane and 1212 Seneca Street. CIP resolutions held over. 21888, authorized contract with Mycor Inc., doing business MDS Construction for playground demolition at Fry and Mill Street Parks. 21887, authorized contract with Backbend Russell Electric for traffic signal upgrades at Hillcrest and Cottage Hill Road. Resolutions held over. 01888, authorized agreement with the Alabama Department of Transportation for U.S. Highway 45 streetscape improvements. 01889, 890, and 891 are authorizing agreements with Brandon Charles, Sebastian Torres, Hans Loeb for to provide tennis lessons and clinics for Parks and Recreation Department. 01892. Authorize agreement with Elaine Campbell to provide tennis lessons and clinics for Parks and Recreation Department. 08893, approved purchase orders for fuel for various city departments. 08884, approved purchase order to Dennis Aluminum Products for decorative aluminum signposts for traffic engineering. 08895, approved purchase order to Interface Services for carpeting for offices on the 5th floor of Government Plaza. 08896, approved purchase order to Jubilee Decor for holiday decorations for Parks and Recreation. 08897, approved purchase order to Conus Inc. for annual renewal of Telstaff workforce management software. 08898, approved purchase order to Vertiv Corporation for annual renewal of maintenance services for MIT Data Center cooling system. 21899, authorized consultant contract with Barter and Associates for construction administration for cathodic protection system for bulkheads at Gulf Quest and the cruise terminal. 21900, authorized contract with Allied Corrosion Industries for installation of cathodic protection system bulkheads at Gulf Quest and the cruise terminal. 21901, authorized contract with Volker and Associates for professional program management services for the Civic Center.
Did we get that resolved? With this
So I think the question was where we go on this is the Volker contract. So there are two options here, and I think you all know the background, but I just want to refresh those who may not have been so clear. We follow or attempt to follow the DBE ordinance on a regular basis. Supplier diversity takes two different approaches. We look at the ones that have bids and subs, and we make sure that they're tracking to include the folks who fall into the DBE category. Then there's two, the professional services that don't get bid, and we look at those through a different filter if it's single source like this one was. So in this instance, you have two options. One, we can go with the original contract because it's singular performance. Volker's dealing with one aspect of the project, but there's going to be a larger scale. Well, we'll make sure they're bids and we go through the DBA process. And then two, we could increase the amount of the contract and have some inclusion there. And it's to the tune of about $400,000 or $500,000. And so it's the same service, but we have to increase the cost. That is a policy decision that the council and the administration have to make collectively. What I can say is through this process, we didn't follow our normal process of going through and getting a waiver. I can tell you 10 times out of 10, this would have been one that would have been waived and we would have had a singular option of Volker anyway. But that didn't happen. What I can assure you is that won't happen again.
In every other city in this region, from as far west that I've been, San Antonio to Birmingham, Memphis, the way they do business is to make sure that professional contracts like these for services have a minority participation clause, and we did not do that. And I'm pretty sure that the consultant that is going after the contract is very aware of that, and they practice that in every other city except for ours. And it seems like our city, which is a majority Black city, doesn't have a majority Black participation role on these professional services contracts. So no, let me finish because I didn't say a word. I mean, it's prudent that we give an opportunity for minorities in our city the opportunity to do business with the city at all levels, whether it's professional services, in-kind services, or actual hard vertical and horizontal construction services or whatever we do. But we did not do that. When I asked you for the proposal last week, I wanted to see it. I had already read it. It's not there. And it should have been there. And it still should be there because there are sections of this contract that I've read where minority participation can be in place. So to say that what we should do is just throw the contract away and re-advertise with a different proposal for requests for services.
So let me, here's where I was going to interrupt you. We have to be very careful. Our ordinance does not specify Black or African American. It's much broader than that. And that's important based on what's going on right now. We're looking to fully allow anybody who falls into the DBE category to participate. That being said, remember, this is just one part of the services. This is not the full 30+ million that may be spent. All of those will go through our DBE process. That is a part of the ordinance. It's required.
Yeah.
And I think what people forget is that the previous council and this administration strengthened the supplier diversity, actually created supplier diversity department. There was none. Nothing existed, created it, and created a much stronger ordinance so that now we have participation. That's not to single out this one. There has to be participation by DBEs going forward by ordinance. Anything we bid, anything they do. All I'm telling you is, as a policy decision, you can go ahead and increase the cost, but this would have made the waiver process. According to the ordinance, it would have met the waiver.
Mr. Woods, have you gone back and looked at the other contracts for professional services that we let over the last year and a half?
I look at all of it.
And have you gone back to look at the requirement in our process?
Yes.
Okay, so you're understanding where I am. I didn't do this until last week. It was getting by me. I didn't go back and look until last week. And I think that we have an ongoing non-participation in the way that we've been doing business with our proposals and requests for proposals. And it's not just this one contract. It goes back over multiple contracts for professional services.
So here's what I'm telling you. Okay. So here's
what you're asking me to do is forgive the $100 million in contract we already have, and let's do it right going forward. Is what it sounds like.
No. What I'm telling you is we have a process. Okay. So for professional services that are singular, say for instance, the city hires me and Mr. Linder. We don't subcontract anything, right? Maybe we get a court reporter or something like that. We don't subcontract there. However, if there are going to be services that do require subs, we require them to go through the process. We force them to go through the process. We absolutely deal with that. If it's going to be a singular service, say for instance, an architect or design professional, there's nothing there to be subbed out.
When a pre-construction or professional services contract like this, there are multi-layers within the contract that can be awarded to other participants. It's not singular. The company may be singular or the individual may be singular, but the task and scope is not singular. Therefore, it opens its doors to other participants, and that's what you're not saying. It may be that you're not understanding the industry, but it may be a singular service, but it has multiple tasks in it that are awardable to other people.
So here's where I agree with you. The answer is yes, but not on this particular project management. What I'm saying is there are going to be other contracts going forward, which is where you're correct. Those must go through the DBE process. So either way, what we have here is we need to follow the DBE ordinance, okay?
We're not.
We need to follow it at every given time. And there is a waiver process for singular situations like this. We will follow it. And I said, anyone who doesn't do it will deal with the consequences. Let me also say this. If the council wants to go forward with including a DBE component here, that's fine, well, and good. I think that's just a policy decision based on cost.
Well, if it were me, and I'm probably going to abstain on this issue, knowing that there's an opportunity here for DBEs, and I mean not just when I say Black, I mean all DBEs, disabled veterans, service disabled veterans, women-owned minorities, the whole gambit. We're not meeting it, and we're not checking that box. So it may be better if we just vote this one down and put it back out, and then let's get it right. If you don't think we can correct the contract and get everything in place.
You can correct it. We've given you the option.
Well, you're telling me that correction requires an increased cost to the scope.
Yes.
But I don't think it would include an increased cost to the scope.
Mr.
Yeah,
President.
yes. We know
I
for
think that
sure.
would be a question for the consultant.
That's what we asked.
Mhm.
That is, so when we went to resolve this issue, that is exactly what came back, because we negotiated down to bare minimum, and it increases the cost to have, we don't want a DBE coming in for free. We want to make sure they're adequately included. And yeah, I have to say this, I have to applaud the previous council and their foresight of helping the administration put this in place. It just happened that this one didn't get a waiver. That doesn't normally happen.
Look, listen, I'm going to just vote it up or down at 10:30. I think that we're missing an opportunity here, and we continue to miss this opportunity for lack of a better word to use, failure to include the requirement in the request for proposal.
Mr. Reynolds?
This consultant, as I understand it, is going to be basically acting on behalf of the city. So basically, one person, essentially, and then they'll have, I'm sure, some support staff that works for them. But they're basically going to be the eyes and ears and acting on behalf of the city for a very complicated, complex build out. And to just insert another layer just for the sake of inserting it and increasing the cost to the taxpayer, I don't know if that's our best opportunity. I think there's probably some other opportunities where we can do a better job for this particular project, but I don't think adding complication and another, person just for the sake of doing it is really what we ought to be concerned with. I mean, it seems quite high to me, $1 million for 9 months worth of work. I mean, that seems quite high to me. I don't really want to add any additional cost for somebody to be over there acting on behalf of the city.
Mr. President,
Mr. Carroll?
it's in the true scheme of it, there doesn't need to be any additional cost. There are sections of the scope in this proposal where a minority contractor can serve as a portion of this contract that's already in place. There's no need to add to the cost. I think the sale or the projection of the need or want to add to the cost is coming from somewhere else. But this contract can be scoped out to where a portion of it, 15%, 22%, the way when I looked at it, could be actually performed by a minority.
Mr. President,
Mr. Days?
I think we beat this horse long enough. Why don't we just see what happens at 10:30?
Mr. Penn?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have 2 questions. Why would it be an increase? And have y'all received that information? And then the second, if it's a singular project manager, in the company, would it be other tasks by workers inside the company, or is all this money going to one person?
No.
Okay.
All the money does not go to one person. It's going to the actual company. Of course, you're going to have support services, but as Mr. Reynolds referenced, what you're doing is you're hiring one person, going to be the eyes and ears. And I think to Mr. Carroll's point, what we really need to make sure of is that going forward, that every single aspect of this project, because it's going to be multi-million-dollar, multi-year, includes the DBE process, whether it's professional services or we're bidding it out. It needs to make sure that we cover that. And that's what we're saying we continue to do. We've done that consistently in the past. And so this particular consultant understands that. We've had that conversation. But to answer your other question, Mr. Penn, the increased cost is because we negotiated down to bare bones, right? And so to bring somebody else in, you say you've got to at least pay them to do the work that they're going to do in this scope. So they've looked at it. They said, hey, how much can we spend to have this person taken away from other jobs to do this job and not lose some level of profit, and then bring somebody else in and make sure you include them in making money, because we're not going to ask anybody to work for free. That's just not how it's going to work. So it's not going to one person, it's going to a company. There's an expanded scope later on, and that expanded scope absolutely has to include DBEs and go through our process. And the backstop for that is the council.
Hold on, Mr. Carroll. Ms. Gregory? Hold up, Ms. Gregory. You finished, Mr. Penn? Ms. Gregory?
Just to follow up, but you're saying on this particular contract, it would not it would have had a waiver anyway on a professional services contract like this. It would have had, normal circumstances, had a waiver.
That's right. That's right. Just because of the limited amount of work that this one professional service contract is providing. And that happens. I mean, that happens. Sometimes we can include them, sometimes we can't. But we know that, and we built that into the order.
And then for this particular project or anything that the city is doing with the Civic Center, y'all intend to break everything down piece by piece by piece,
To
rather
the-
than having like one big contract
To the
and awarding
extent,
one.
to the extent we can, even if it's a big contract, there's still going to have to be DBE participation. And it's not just with this
Well,
contract. We
yeah.
should do it across the board where you don't have a singular company providing all the services.
Right.
That's the way the ordinance works. Unless you get a waiver, you need to participate. So in that vein, I tend to agree with Mr. Carroll that it needs to be an umbrella all the time across the board. Whether you get a waiver or not, you still have to go through the process. You must go through the process.
But at the end of the contract, shouldn't we see the percentage of DBE? The total amount that we should see per the entire project, should not that work out whether there's a DBE on this particular contract or not? The total should
It should.
reflect the percentage.
It should, and we should be pushing for that. We should pushing to follow, if not exceed, the ordinance. And I guarantee you, based on this conversation, everybody will be watching.
Yeah, not if we go keep going the way we're going. Just, I don't know how to make this plain and clear to you guys. They keep calling out a singular contract. In a singular contract, the consultant is required in every other city to check a line of boxes for participation, whether the estimating, whether the scheduling, whether the programming, whether whatever it is in that project management or program management line has a component. Each one of those components can be used to meet the qualifications of the participation in every contract. It doesn't mean that the overall multiple contracts has it. It means that every contract written has an opportunity to check that box. So what Mr. Woods is projecting here is somewhat, in my mind, misleading, because when we as a company, and this is from experience, respond to these things in Thompson or Volkert or Hargrove or Sharp or Satterfield and Pontigas or these companies call us up on the phone and say, hey, we have a program or project management contract. It's singular, but we need Carroll Incorporated or P2MG to check this box and perform this one single task in this contract. And that might be 100,000, it might be 50,000, it might be 200,000, but it's one single item in $1 million contract, which gives us that 10 or 15%. And that is what we're talking about right now. Ownership of a portion of that contract, which is not in this singular contract. And that is what is not being conveyed by the legal system here from the attorney. The possibility for that to be there is there not on just a singular contract, it's there on multiple work contracts. It's on every opportunity, and we just aren't doing it. And that's what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. That's not the picture that's being painted over there, but it's the truth in how these projects are awarded and bid out in every other major city in this region. But Mobile has not been doing it, period.
Mr. President.
Mr. Penn.
My concern is that if we were supposed to do that, then we should have did it, right? And moving forward, you don't want to move forward without doing something. You don't want to create that culture. You don't want to create that mindset, especially with a project this big and going forward. We don't want to put doubts in people's mind. We should do it right, and whatever way we can correct it, we should correct it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anyone else? All right, Madam Clerk.
31902, adopt the allocation provided by ADECA for the CDBG DR Planning Award. 40903, 903, authorize the purchase of 4231 Shipyard Road with Go Mesa grant funds.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mann.
is there an opportunity, this goes back to 21901, this contract for Civic Center. Is there not an opportunity for Mr. Carroll to maybe offer an amendment on a best effort by Volkert to put in there that, Volkert will make best effort. It'll match the wording of the ordinance in there to resolve this matter? That's probably a lawyer question.
Let's,
Yeah, let's
Let's-
talk
let's-
about that.
let's
after
talk
doing the
about this
announcement.
after that.
Yeah, Madam Clerk.
47-904, 905, 906 are assenting to the vacation of a portion of an alley adjacent to 2411 Wilson Avenue, assenting to the vacation of a portion of US Highway 90 West Service Road, and considering a vacation of right-of-way fee as a condition of the vacation of a portion of US Highway 90 West Service Road. Ordinances being introduced. 25039, ordinance amending chapter 25 garbage, trash, and litter of the Mobile City Code.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr. Days.
I'd like to see this proposed ordinance go to committee so we can have a full discussion of it. We can understand how it differs from what we currently have and how various areas of the city might be affected by it. I just think we need to look deeply into it.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Mr. Reynolds.
I agree with Councilman Daves. This looks like a pretty substantial overhaul of Chapter 25, based on what I can tell. And I'd like to be able to understand it a bit better. Is there a possibility that we could get a red line version of this produced to us? Whoever put this ordinance together?
Under this comprehensive, we can find the changes. I think, Ms. Callaway sent you all a pretty.
Yeah, she did. It was a pretty extensive overview of the changes, but I struggle with trying to match them up, with this changes that. And so if there's
It's a lot of changes.
I
Yeah, we
agree.
know.
I just want to make sure I understand those
We know.
changes.
What I sent y'all, the one pager that I sent you is exactly where the changes are. The opening line of it was don't molest the galvanized metal trash cans. And then it goes further from there. So much had to be rewritten and changed to modernize it. I want to say the original version was 1980s. John Peavy said he was on the council. So we've been working on this for about 2 years. I'm happy to be in a committee meeting, have some Linda actually walk through what the changes are. I think the red line version will be pretty hard.
We can get you the best, let me explain why. Okay, so this has been an ongoing process.
There are probably 8 or 9 different people who made changes. It was not just one department, but to the extent we have the changes in the red line version that are accurate, that's why she put that document together. We're more than happy to provide that to you. I just don't know it's gonna be comprehensive because all of them weren't made with track changes. It's been over a year since it's been, yeah.
So you understand the challenge that's, with me to try to understand, what was changed here, and especially being someone who sort of
You're
cares about one word here or there. But the documents we have now, this big, huge ordinance, which that's a lot of pages, and then comparing it to a one pager, it's hard to reference back,
Sure.
to the existing ordinance, to this one, what minor changes here or there, because this affects everybody in the city. Of course, every household in the entire city this affects. So I want to make sure I've got a good handle on it. So I don't know that although the one page is very helpful, if there's another way to, compare our existing ordinance to this ordinance, I'd be happy to.
Absolutely. We'd be glad to get you
It
the
would
most
make it a lot
updated-
easier for
no,
me.
won't I try?
updated version of the track changes that we've made, at least in the last couple of months. Get you that, and then be more than happy to participate in a committee meeting and explain what those changes are and are not.
It's so
Days.
hard.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to echo what Mr. Reynolds said, and really it's not just with respect to this, but I think it'd be helpful to us whenever the administration proposes changes to existing ordinances to have a red line, because it's just much easier for us to understand how the proposed ordinance differs from the existing ordinance with a red line so we can look at it. I think Ms. Callaway's done a good job, but it's just really difficult for us to go through that and get it all to hook up together. So anything that can be done to help us with that, not only with this proposed ordinance, but in the future would be helpful. When we have this committee meeting to go through this. I think it'd be helpful if we could have, well, one of the questions I'm going to have is about enforcement. We have, in the 10 years I've been on the council, we've looked at litter and trash on several occasions. And I noticed, just going through what Ms. Callaway had sent us, that there are some provisions here that are going to change with respect to particularly how commercial properties deal with trash and litter. And I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. But we need to understand how the enforcement is going to work, and really, are we going to have effective enforcement? But we can pass all the ordinances we want to pass all day long. But if they're not going to, and this is not a criticism, but we can pass ordinances all day long, but if they're not going to be enforced, then we're kind of wasting our time. Not totally, but kind of.
Okay, we'll just send this to committee.
No, it sounds like there are probably a number of iterations, a number of drafts that have come along. That's probably why you were saying in the last couple of months. So I don't know if you can go back to the very beginning and start giving us that, here's this first change down to change 23, but as best you can, that would be great. And we need to probably go ahead and do this committee meeting fairly soon, just to get on everybody's calendars to make sure everybody is available.
Well, all right.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Consent resolutions being introduced, 03908, appoint Emma Holt to the Mobile City County Youth Council. 31909 and 31910 are authorizing grant applications to the United States Tennis Association for court resurfacing and lights and electric control panels, no local match. 40, 911, 912, 913, 14, 15 are declaring the structures at 1861 LaSalle Street, 2510 Green Lawn Drive, 1157 Kentucky Street, 3105 Emily Drive, 400 LaRose Drive, public nuisances and ordering them demolished or secured. 46-916, rename Lafayette Heights Park to Historic Lafayette Heights Neighborhood Park. 46-917, name the multipurpose athletic field at Thomas Sullivan Park to the, Coach Herschel Wilson Senior Multipurpose Athletic Field. 58-918, declare Weeds Noxious Group 1646. 60-919, determine an appropriation to Mobile Bay Area Veterans Day Commission serves a public purpose and authorizing payments. CIP resolutions being introduced, 089.
Mr. President,
Ms. Carroll.
before we move forward, Herschel Wilson, I don't know if this administration actually knew Herschel Wilson. Herschel Wilson is probably one of the most single-handed persons that was responsible for Peters Park, which is now Sullivan Park or Sullivan Center. For over 40 years, Coach Wilson either cut the grass or fixed the fences or did the scores or put together the teams. He coached probably countless kids over 40 years from that community throughout this city, even people that transferred over from J.R. Thomas after J.R. Thomas closed when it was on the Avenue. It's been a special part to the Lafayette Heights community for a very, very long time. I would like to, after we get this done next week, I'd like to ask the administration if we could find a few pennies to redo the scoreboard out there, because the scoreboard on the football field has been broken for some time. Also, it serves the football field and baseball fields. If we could, and I'll help with what I can from discretion, but get the scoreboard fixed and let's put Herschel Wilson Field on top of the scoreboard out there in remembrance of a coach that practically ran that park for years on its own by itself before we got to a point where our Parks and Recreation Center was strong enough to provide the backup out there the way it's doing now. So that's my request right there. And I'd like to, again, I offer our condolences to Coach Wilson and his family for everything that they've done. He's another one like Marion Shepherd was to our Parks and Recreation Center, but was a tremendous asset to us over 40 years. Thank you, Mr. President.
Madam Clerk.
CIP resolutions being introduced, 08920, approve purchase order to Digital Aerial Solutions for processing and production of map contours for GIS, $39,271.69. 21921, authorized contract with Watkins AC Strunk Design, Inc. for site improvements at Tricentennial Park, $73,000. Resolutions being introduced, 01922, authorized agreement with Raul, is it Raul or Raul? Malabar to provide tennis lessons and clinics for Parks and Recreation Department. Yeah, a lot of people. $80,000 per year. 08923, approved purchase order to CDW government for iPad tablets and vehicle mounts for mobile fire rescue, $15,514. 08924, approved purchase order to Centus Corporation for insulated jackets and bib overalls for Public Services Department, $16,275. 08925, approved purchase order to Gordon Companies for walkthrough Christmas tree for Parks and Recreation. 926, approved purchase order to Gordon Company street pole decorations, $26. 08927, approved purchase order to Quick Buildings for portable staff building for DIP recycling drop-off site, $55,672.
I'm going to ask is Ms. Callaway, if you could come forth. Council, Ms. Callaway asked if we could address this today, and I'm going to ask her if she can explain to us why I think we are in the process of maybe lose some grant money if this is not passed today.
Yes, sir. We received a grant last September from ADEM for $340,000 total. $190,000 of that is supposed to go to building a third recycling center. We have scoured every piece of property across the city of Mobile, worked really hard to get this, the school board to donate or trade us a piece of property. But finally landed on this absolutely excellent spot on Dauphin Island Parkway, right next door to the Waffle House. We thought we could get an extension on the grant money, but we cannot. ADEM has a process where this is their expenditure, their capital year. So we have to spend all $190,000, and we have to do it very quickly to build out that center. We've got a team working on it. Everything is going as fast as humanly possible. But we've got this one. This buys the modular building that our staff will be housed in. And then next week, you're going to have the rest of the budget, everything bid out, itemed out, and you'll have that whole list. So you'll get to see what the whole budget is, and we're going to ask y'all to go forward with that. We don't ask y'all very often. I would not ask if we don't get the money spent, though we don't get the money. So we're working really hard to get that done quickly. And it will be a beautiful site. We're partnering with the Peninsula of Mobile. That's an area where they wanted to have an entryway to the peninsula, to the area. And so they have had a lease on the property. We work together with them to really design it, make sure it's good looking, and it'll also be, we believe it'll be a high volume drop off site.
The questions, Council. Mr. Penn, Mr. Days, Mr. Carroll, Mr. Woods, Ms. Gregory.
Waive the rules on this one.
All right, thank you, Ms. Callaway.
Thank you.
08928, approved purchase order to Sun South for John Deere tractor, $194,400. 08929, approved purchase order to Turner Wilson Fence for fencing for cruise terminal off-site parking, $20,866.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
we're going to have a parking problem at the Civic Center site when we go under construction for Mardi Gras. Is the plan to use the cruise terminal or open it up for Mardi Gras organizations, and then they can do transports back and forth? I mean, we're going to have a real parking problem. I mean, we know that that's going to happen.
Yeah, we're meeting this week. We've already been discussing with the current parking companies here within the city. We're trying to find alternate parking areas where we could place cars and then set up a shuttle system to get them to the Civic Center.
So isn't the cruise terminal sort of a prime opportunity to do that?
Normally it would be, but we will have a cruise ship at that time, so it will be full.
So, okay, all right.
Okay.
This overflow parking is in support of the cruise itself?
Correct.
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
08930, approved purchase order to VC3 for annual renewal of MIT data security backup and recovery services, $126,000. 08931, approved purchase order to Vertiv Corporation for annual renewal of maintenance services for MIT Museum Drive, $16,369. 09932, reallocate funds from general fund room facilities to capital project fund civic center marketing to fund professional services contract, $90,000. 09933, transfer funds from general fund unassigned fund balance to city hall overhead Ladd Stadium for Ladd Stadium fiscal plan, $200,000.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
I'm not sure what this item is. Can somebody explain it to me?
These, it's to secure the operational cost of Ladd Stadium until this deal is closed with the school system. So with the stadium still open, we're still paying the power, the water, all the utilities, and we have a skeleton crew also there, including CJ Drinkard, until we can do the transfer.
Hold on, Mr. Kara. Mr. Reynolds.
So the property hasn't closed yet. What's the time frame, do you think, on the
I think we got
closing?
about another month. There's a 60-day due diligence that in the intergovernmental agreement, and so they're in their due diligence part. We did meet with Ricardo Wood yesterday, and he's in touch with Derek Atchison, and they're trying to get all that closed out, get it ready.
Okay, and our expectation that it'll take another 200 grand to fund them for another month and a half?
It's about 51,000 a month is what the operational cost is. But we're just trying to secure enough money to make sure that if there is a delay, that we have the funds moved.
Okay, so yeah, we're just moving the funds over and then we'll pay the bills. The city will pay the bills.
That's correct.
As long as,
That's
okay.
Then who's managing the stadium right now?
CJ Drinkard.
Is it still city owned or is it school system owned?
It's still city owned until they close.
Will that closure you think will be ahead of September 16th? You said about a month.
About a month.
Probably, if it isn't, we have contingencies in place.
There's an issue that was brought to my attention. I need to talk to you about it later on today in relationships to secured contracts out there and changes to those contracts based on ownership. If we still own the facility, then those contracts as negotiated in the original place should be the same as the request that they be changed. Is that not correct?
Say that again.
I'll talk to you about this quickly after the meeting.
Mr. Penn.
So if the city is still in ownership, football games starting this high school. Yeah. So what is the process? What's the deal? What's going on with is the school system giving us a payment? Like, what's the guidelines right now in this month, since we're still in ownership and they're having high school football games?
It is still a city-owned facility. We're operating it, paying all the utilities and keeping the doors open so we can have the high school games.
Are we receiving rent is what he's asking.
Oh, rent.
Yeah.
You know if they're,
So it'll only be, I don't know that we are, but if we do, it comes to the city. Remember, this is the first time we've had to do this way.
Yeah.
So we're working through that process, but I can tell you the school system funds the event.
Yeah,
We pay the
their
utilities
security.
we normally would, but security, all the other issues, they take care of those issues.
They
So
would-
we're working through that process now.
They would,
It's a transition for sure.
they were doing that in the first place,
That's
wasn't it?
correct.
So I mean,
That's
the
right.
rent was still coming to us on top of them doing or upholding their responsibilities to the games themselves.
Going to the lab board, but now it'll come to the city.
Right. So I guess the question is are they paying rent?
We can find that out. They should.
But I'm pretty sure we can work something out to make it all palatable to everybody is what you're trying to say, right?
Mr. Lambert.
13934, authorized change order with Robert J. Baggett for joint replacement at the Convention Center Exhibit Hall, $59,638. 21935, authorized contract with Hadley Construction Specialties for window repairs at 200 Government Street, $104,290. 21936, authorized contract with Double A Construction Company for re-roofing of Mobile Police Department Third Precinct, $182,400. 21937, authorized contract with H.O. Weaver and Sons for 2022 Pago resurfacing, $10,826,321.48. 21938, authorized contract with Waste Pro of Alabama for residential garbage and trash services, $1,200,000 for a period of 3 years.
Mr. President. Yeah, Mr. Reynolds and then Mr. Penn.
I suppose this is probably the contract for the newly annexed areas. Is Waste Pro currently servicing these areas?
They are. They're present. You want to ask a question?
How many households are they going to be servicing with this? And is this a citywide contract or just a contract for the new areas?
So it's both. There's about 6,100 residential properties that they'll be servicing in the newly annexed areas, but there's also provisions for other city needs. If we got behind on garbage or trash within the city, there is provisions for them to fill in for that.
And how did we arrive at Waste Pro? It's my understanding a large portion of the services being provided in these newly annexed areas were from an existing company, from one company, the vast majority of services. So, we got to start providing services. Are they adequately equipped, and did we give ample consideration to their ability to not disrupt from what I can tell, exceptional level of service that's been provided in these newly annexed areas?
So we had, it was out for bid as required, and you had three bidders. It was Republic, Waste Pro, and McDuffie. The bid winner in this was Waste Pro. It then went to Public Services for them to determine whether or not they could actually execute on it. Do they have the resources to do it? That came back as a positive that they could. And so, and again, they're here if you want to hear from them.
Well, I'm more interested in hearing from the administration, about this decision that was made on this criteria of how we arrived at disrupting this, exceptional level of service. Was there a significant or substantial price difference that made us arrive at this conclusion?
There was, but there's also provisions for backup contract, and we're in negotiations on those too.
Privatization of garbage.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think needs to be pointed out,
This is going to lead
we always we play the game of who wants to be a felon, and we follow, we have to follow the bid law. So specifically, I'll point out 411651 subsection 10, and there's a specific exception for not bidding if you're already in a contract dealing with solid waste and picking up garbage. There is no exception if you're newly going into a contract like this one. You must bid it. You have to go with the lowest bidder. And so we put the criteria in, wanted that you had to be in the existing service area so as not to disrupt service. So nobody brand new would come in. We wanted to make sure they had the capabilities. That was important. I think that's a really good question. And two, I think there's a question earlier about why we didn't have a local preference. We do that with professional services. You can put that in a bid, but you cannot go away from the lowest responsible bidder in the state of Alabama or in this city. And if we wanted to change that in Montgomery, I think the chamber would probably help us do that. But until then, we have to go with the lowest bidder. And Waste Pro was the lowest bidder by a substantial amount, probably close to $1 million over the 3-year period for this bid. And so, in order to comply with the bid law, to not disrupt services, and to make sure we had an adequate bidder that would come in and be able to do the job on day one for the newly annexed citizens, We followed the bid law and followed this process, and just wanted to point that out. And like I said, nobody wants to skirt that law and then end up, on the wrong side of it.
Hold on, Mr. Carroll. You know, Mr. Reynolds,
Yes, for now.
Mr. Penn, then Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mr.
Gina was ahead of me.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple questions. First, did we look at a cost estimate for the city of Mobile and Public Works to be able to provide that service? And going forward, I see 3 years. Are we looking to, if we were to approve this going forward, are we looking to add that service to Public Works in the future?
So Public Works did go through cost estimates. I also met with Public Works yesterday about the ability to take over services in that area. Because of the lag time in garbage trucks and trash trucks, as well as just spinning up to get enough personnel in Public Works to do it, is why we decided to go with a 3-year contract. But we're still evaluating the cost effectiveness of the city eventually taking over those services.
So at this moment, we don't have a number?
By a number, what would it cost the city?
Yes.
Well,
to
I
provide
think it was around $2.5 million worth of equipment that we would need, and then personnel on top of that.
Mr. Gregory.
Yeah, I think Mr. Reynolds had asked about disrupting some of the current services, but as far as I can recall from being out in those neighborhoods, each neighborhood or each person who lives in the newly annexed areas don't necessarily use the same company, correct?
That's correct.
So somebody's going to be disrupted one way or the other. So that was really one of my questions. And the rest of it is really getting into the weeds about what kind of garbage carts and all that sort of thing that we can talk about later. But I just wanted to make sure on that, because I know that a lot of the people out there had one service versus another service. And even some people want to keep their current service. And I guess they're going to be willing to pay for, that particular pickup. But anyway, that was really good. I just want to make sure on them.
Yeah, so we're expecting to execute our services beginning on October the 2nd, which is a Monday.
October 2nd.
Right, but the carts will be delivered in September, beginning September 4th. It'll start this delivery process. All of the carts will have instructions on them on when to place it out, where to put it.
Yeah.
But what we do, and I've talked to a couple of the private providers, that until October, we expect that as much communication as we do with all the information we put on the carts, some people are still going to put garbage in the city cart and push it out to the curb in September. The garbage currently belongs to the private service providers. It's just the container is ours. So we're asking them to, if they do that, go ahead and pick it up, because we don't want garbage sitting in there for a month before we get around to picking it up, because it becomes city garbage October 1st.
Are the carts going to be the same ones like you're currently using
That's correct.
with this new company? So it'll be the same cart.
So there's a lot of coordination going on, because the providers have to go out and pick up their carts. And, so all of this, but they can't do it until, October. And so there's a lot of, and we're going to have a meeting. I was talking to Waste Pro this morning that we'll have to have a meeting with the big providers out there to make sure that services are transitioning as seamlessly as possible so that people aren't left out of garbage pickup.
Mr. Carroll and Mr. Davis.
I think they've asked most of the big questions. The only other question left is, it seems as if, though this is a 3-year contract, is there an option for renewal in this?
There's
After
always
3?
options to renew a contract.
So is there an option to renewal, or is the city actually going to perform the service? Because if there's an option to renew, it seems like we're going towards privatization of garbage and trash pickup as opposed to the city performing the service. So that's my question. Is this going to become a privatization contract where it's going to then at some point start to encroach upon the entire city as just opposed to out here in the annexed area? The other thing is you stated that we didn't know about what the cost was for garbage and trash pickup. It was my understanding during the annexation period that we knew what our costs of transitions were. You just stated that you didn't know. So if you don't know, then I would suggest that someone give us those costs of transitions in hard numbers as to what it would actually cost us, the city, to perform the services, because that was the auspice we were working under as we were going through the annexation period. Is we knew what it was going to cost us. We knew how long it was going to take for us to transition. We knew how much money we had to have in order to get everything that we needed under the city's care. And now I'm hearing something totally different.
I don't think I was stating it any differently. It's all in the PFM report that if the city were to execute on purchasing garbage trucks, trash trucks, hiring personnel, what that cost would be for the initial outlay, as well as the recurring cost of personnel and benefits. And so it's all in the PFM study. I just can't recall. I kind of took Councilman Penn's question to be the cost per household for us to do it versus a private company, and that I don't have off the top of my head.
I was under the impression that the city was actually our services were going to perform